Sin City. Saturday night. Fight night. Any given weekend, this place is the entertainment capital of the world. When combat sports shines brightest on the Las Vegas Strip. Boxing and mixed martial arts need some new voices. And Franchise Sports Media got them for you. Join Kalani Lua and Griff and Kalani each week as they bring you news and hot takes from inside the octagon and the ring. Get your popcorn ready. It's showtime. FSM's main event starts right now.
What's going on, fight fans? Thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of the main event right here on Franchise Sports Media. I'm Kalani Lua.
I'm Griff and Kalani.
Griff! It's a long way away around the globe, brother, but the UFC is going to bring us a banger, a heater, if you would. UFC 294. We are going to deep dive into all of it right here on the main event. But Griff, my boy.
Some things have changed.
So initially, 294 featured Islam Malachev defending the lightweight title against Charles Oliveira. In the co-main event, it was going to be Khamzat Chimaev, your boy, taking on Paulo Costa with the secret juice.
Yeah, a little bit too much juice, apparently.
Bang, right? So some changes happened. Paulo Costa had staph infection in his elbow, which I don't know if you've seen the pictures.
Awful.
It's
It's awful.
horrible. I really do hate when people try to use the fact that, this person's ducking so-and-so, or they're afraid. No. Even Dana White confronted at the press conference. No, this is a serious injury. He needs to get rid of it. Paulo Costa, get better, my man. Seriously, we love you. Get better.
Yes, sir.
Then Charles Oliveira takes an unfortunate cut above the eye, 10 days out, 12 days out before the fight. Oh, my heart was broken.
It was a sad day. That was a really hard day, man.
It was. But you know, sometimes, Griff,
You get rewarded.
you take a step back in order to
Two
go
steps forward.
We
Let's
got
go.
some replacement. Khamzat Chimaev is taking on the former welterweight champion of the world, probably the second greatest welterweight of all time. Former champion Kamaru Usman making his middleweight debut.
Yep.
The Nightmare taking on the Wolf. Then you got, Islam, you need an opponent? I'll be your Huckleberry. His former foe, UFC featherweight GOAT, Alexander Volkanovski, stepping in to take on Islam Malachev. Griff, I've been talking enough. The floor is yours. What do you make of all this before we dive into each individual matchup? Just what do you think of all the turmoil 294 has had?
You know, after that card where Nate Diaz and Khamzat Chimaev, who just so happens to be, connected to two now cards that have had this giant overhaul of change on the last minute. That card was one that I thought, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And then you go back to what you alluded to a couple of shows ago about John Jones and that entire card getting shut down back in the day because he couldn't make it. This has been one of the craziest news weeks. And honestly, it happened on a day where we least expected it. We shot a show. We didn't think there was any big news that day. No. And then right when we get done shooting, right when we get home, I see my phone and all hell breaks loose.
Yep.
It's crazy to see. I think, with the two changes on the very top two fights, I don't know if you can argue if the card is worse or better. The news of it all and the excitement of it all maybe make it seem like 294 as it stands today is better than what it was originally scheduled. But then again, I think there's a little bit of problems with the matchups. I think there are some problems with the previous matchups. Either way, we are in for a banger in Abu Dhabi. It's going to be exciting. I want to know your thoughts. Do you feel like the card's a little better now or a little worse?
You know what? That's a great point that you bring up. I don't know if it's better, but I will say my excitement level is definitely peaking because when a card falls apart, it's always devastating, right? But then to have these replacements, a former champion, an all-time great in Usman, the current champion, all-time great in Volkanovski, to step in. To me, that's one of those, hey, man, if you're going to give us replacements, these are replacements. Sometimes we've had some replacements where it was, remember that time when Habib. Paul fight Tony Ferguson. Ferguson out. Max Holloway steps in the week of. Yep. He gets taken out that day. You had Paul Felder. He was going to step in, but because at the time he wasn't ranked, his opponent, Ale Quinta, gets it. And at first you're just like, listen, with all the turnovers, I can't be upset about it. But Khabib's about to run through this guy. Alex Winter gave him a good show.
Might have been the best fight Khabib ever had.
He gave him a good run. This is one, though, where you say, even though we're not seeing last-second changes the day of weigh-ins, this is awesome to have these ones because Kamaru Usman, who we've always talked about in the past, would he ever move up to middleweight? No. Izzy's a champion. They're best friends. Nigeria. No, he's not going to move up. But then we've seen him stare off against your boy, Jan Blachowicz. We're like, hey, maybe skip 185, go to 205. Yeah. Major league, but still in all. Yeah. Then we always start, when will the rematch happen between Volkanovski and Islam? Just because their first fight so much down the middle. Some people feel like Islam won. Which he got his hand raised. Some people feel Volkanovski won. So it's one of those where you said at some point, I'm with you, that at some point they're going to meet. To meet under these circumstances, not the most ideal way, but I will say I'm intrigued to see how this goes. Does it favor him? Kind of reminds me of Michael Bisping stepping in on 10 days' notice against Luke Rocco when Chris Weidman got injured.
That's a good point.
We've seen replacements come in on short notice and pull off the upset. We've seen some not so much. So my excitement to your question is still high. I definitely want to see the original matchups played out at some point in the future. We'll see the fallout of this, which, again, we'll talk about. My excitement is still high in that particular regard. So let me just ask you this before we dive into this. And I know we'll probably mention it in the breakdown of the fights, but just quickly on this particular point, because these guys stepped in on short notice, does a loss to either Volkanovski or Usman hurt them as far as going forward? You're stepping in on less than 2 weeks' notice, Griff, and you're taking on two of the scariest dudes on the roster that not a lot of people want to jump into the deep end with right away. Does this hurt a trilogy between Islam and Volkanovski? Does this hurt Usman having another top-tier fight at 185? Or is it like, hey, you're playing with house money because even though lose, you took it on short notice? What are your thoughts?
I think it's different for both fighters. I think Volkanovski, he even said in the little UFC preview, he's risking a lot, but there's a lot to gain. I think for him, a loss, I mean, right now he's ranked what? He's ranked 2 for the pound for pound in the UFC rankings with John Jones -- 1. John Jones. Who? John Jones.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. He is ranked behind Jones. And originally when they fought, the thing was Islam was putting his belt on the line at lightweight while Volk was putting up his #1 pound for pound ranking. Now, and even after Islam won that fight, they still didn't put him #1.
Oh.
I think they still had Volk ranked above him.
Volk was still above.
Yes. And so now in this fight, I mean, he could lose his 2nd overall pound for pound ranking. I don't think that means as much to him. He's coming to obviously get that belt and he sees more of what he can gain more than what he can lose. But for Kamaru Usman, I think that he's risking a lot, especially with it being so short notice and him having to, we don't know how much he was training before this got announced. He's a professional. He's probably always training a little bit here and there, but you can't say that he was having a full-on training camp, thinking this was going to happen. And I think for him, especially after losing to Leon Edwards twice, and now he's moving up to middleweight. This is his first fight, like you said, in this division, and he's going against Khamzat Chimaev. It's a lot to ask from him. And if he loses at middleweight, I mean, it's not welterweight. He's in a whole new division. He's a whole different opponent. But the thing is, Dana White has said this fight has title implications on the line, which we can get into that too, because there's a lot to talk about that. But yeah, I think for Volkanovski, he definitely, a loss here doesn't really affect him. For the most part, it's still going to be hard for him to get maybe another chance to become a double champion unless something happens where Islam loses the belt. But I think going forward, Kamaru Usman, if he doesn't win on Saturday, I don't really know where the former great welterweight champion goes from this point.
Interesting that you say that. Real quick, because after this, we're going to dive into the bouts. I think for Usman, it could be a knock on it, but like you said, brand new division I've never fought in. I'm taking on one of the I'm taking on the boogeyman of this division that a lot of people don't want to take on short particular notice. Yes, this technically would be my 3rd loss in a row, but there has to be some leeway here that I'm taking on such short notice. I'm flying across the country, across the world, as well. So you got to take all that into it as well. I don't think it would hurt him, but I do think that he would need then, if he suffered a loss, he would need maybe 2 good wins at middleweight to try to get back into the title picture from there, depending who he's matched up against and how things fall out. For Volkanovski, I do think that a loss would set him back, like you said, if Islam loses it, But again, you're stepping in on short notice taking on this dude, and you're going across the world. I don't know if I could knock you that much for losing it, especially like you said, dude, the last time y'all fought, you put up such a good performance, you didn't even get knocked down in the pound-for-pound rankings. So I would almost say, yeah, dude, neither one of you guys really have much to lose here. In fact, it's a win-win, because if you lose, it's short notice, how much we prepared. If you go out there and look decent, but you get caught or you just get snuffed, but you still look decent, hell, let's run it back with a full training camp and see how you look. Or if you go out there and win, well, Usman, you can go here next for X, Y, and Z title, double champ. Now you get to call the shots in 2 different divisions. We know Islam is going to come down to 45, so he'd have to shave the beard, shave the head all off. He had to get rid of everything to be able to make it. So house money, I feel that they are playing with. Let's dive into the fights.
Let's do it.
Main event.
Yep.
Islam Malachev. 24-1, taking on Alexander Volkanovski at 26-2. One of those losses coming to Islam. Very, very competitive fight. Again, some people saw it go the other way for Volkanovski. 2 are right here. Obviously, Islam had his hand raised. What say you about the round 2? Islam, Volk, go.
Oh, my fear originally for their first fight was I was worried we were going to see like a Conor versus Khabib part 2, where it was just the Dagestani man taking his opponent down and consistently just mauling him. But but Volkanovski was showing in that fight, in that first fight, he doesn't care if he's on the ground with Islam. He welcomes it. He was screaming at him. He was punching him in the face, back of the head, because he had him all around. He didn't look worried one bit. My concern, though, I'm someone who is absolutely rooting for Volkanovski on Saturday. I want to see that man become a 2-weight division champion. If he were to win this, it would be he'd arguably be the greatest 2-division champion in the history of the UFC. It's the path that he had to take to get there, and what he's doing, especially this week, going on 11 days notice to fight Islam. You can't. It's hard not to argue that he's at the top, but my concern is that he is, like we said, he's doing this on 11 days notice. Yes, he's Alexander the Great Volkanovski. You know he's always staying ready. He's always keeping himself in tip-top shape. But I want this man to have a full training camp. I want this man to know that this fight is coming and be able to do all the necessary things to be as prepared as possible. I think that coming in, it's not, and here's the thing, that first fight too was in Australia in front of his people. It was in front of Volk's people. Now he's going to Abu Dhabi. Now Islam Makhachev's not from Abu Dhabi, but it's really a Muslim country, city
Very
area.
so.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be
He's got the hometown advantage for real.
Absolutely. So I think there's just so much stacked against Volkanovski that makes me concerned. But it also, with so much stacked against him, like he said, so much to gain. If he were to win this, it's going to change the history books. It's going to put Volkanovski. I'm going to start arguing with you that this man is coming for John Jones. He just needs a few more goddamn achievements, and then he's going to be right there with old Bones Jones, baby. Yeah, I said it.
What?
I said it.
What?
I said it.
Oh, you know what? Mm-hmm. If I actually think about it.
You think about it. Think about it. Think about this Aussie, this 5'2" Aussie, and what he has done to the men in this goddamn corporation.
That's not too bad of an argument. That's not okay. I wasn't prepared to defend John Jones. I'm always ready to go to war. But you threw me off with that one. That's a good one though.
Yeah.
That's a good one though. We'll go over the resumes afterwards if it happens.
If it happens.
Alexander Volkanovski, according to reports, was in the 180 range. Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, 180.
My boy loves the kangaroo, loves the shrimp on the Barbie.
Oh, that boy was eating.
But again, he comes from the camp over there in Australia, just like Izzy, excuse me, just like Izzy, and just like, it's not Australia, but just like Max Holloway, where, hey man, we're ready to go to war anytime we're called upon. We are ready. Unless we have a serious injury or the doctor says we can't continue to cut weight, let's go to war. Yeah. And Volkanovski brings that mentality. What I love in watching the press conference and just everything leading up to it, his mindset is like, yes, I did get paid handsomely for this. Well-deserving. Dude, I'm a champion. One of the all-time greats in my division. Like you said, possibly one of the best of all time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I should be. But I'm coming in here to kill. Last time in my hometown, I did what I thought was enough. Did not see my hand raised. I would not let it go to the judges this time. I would not leave it up for debate. I will go out there and I will look to take over and dominate. Islam is like, whoa, buddy, you're in my backyard now. You don't go in my living. You don't go in my kitchen and open up my refrigerator. You ask for permission first. I will let you get a drink of water if I deem you worthy enough. He's got his uncle, Habib, back in his corner, who apparently Habib has never missed a day of training despite being retired for 3 years. Holy hell.
He's a monster.
Absolute monster. So there is this dynamic of, okay, how is it going to play out? Will the change of opponent switch up for Islam? Honestly, I don't think so. Obviously, the dynamics, Oliveira being taller, Volkanovski being shorter, already having familiarity with him, different style of approach, but I think the mindset is still the same. Go out there, smish, and go out there and grind it out and put on what I can do. For Volkanovski, I really do believe this, Griff. I think he's going to have to change up one or two things to give a different look, but I think he's going to try to be a little bit more aggressive. I think last time, because of the size difference in the wrestling, he thought if he was overly aggressive, Islam would revert back to automatically wrestling. At times, he didn't. He stood up with them, and I think that kind of surprised Volk. Yeah. What I'm interested to see is, because we saw it against Max Holloway and others, does he immediately go to the leg kick attack right away? He throws some of the most vicious leg kicks out there. I forget the machine that he was using in training camp before his second fight with Max Holloway. They were showing this device that he uses. Dude, he does like 1,000 leg kicks each leg when he trains.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Oh, yeah.
He's like a old boy in Bloodsport. No, not Bloodsport. Kickboxer. Tom Powell kicking the cylinder in the roof.
I think a better example would be like Tony Ferguson sharpening those goddamn shins with iron poles.
True, but Volkanovski stays healthy for his fights on.
That is also true. That is also true.
That's also true. But let's break down the fight really quickly here.
Yeah.
I think Volkanovski is going to try to be more aggressive. I think Volkanovski is going to try to go out there and utilize the leg kicks to slow down Islam, not allow his dive, his shoot for the takedowns to be as effective because his lead leg is not as strong. And I do think Volkanovski is going to try to use angles and throw some bombs at him because he knows I got to rock this dude. He knocked him down once. You see? He's not a machine. He's a man. He knocked him down once. I think this time we're going to see a different Volkanovski. It is short day notice, but like I said with Michael Bisping, Luke Rocco, man, I kind of got this little whiff in the air.
You smell something's coming.
Yeah, and it's not what the Rock is cooking. Trust me, I wish it was. But just understand, I think Volkanovski's game plan is going to be leg kicks, bombs, circle around, and I think he's going to end up getting try to see if he can land some powerful punches here to get him. What did say you?
I like that he fought Yair Rodriguez, Volkanovski did before this fight. I like that he had that because in that fight, we saw him fight Yair, who Yair's known as this crazy striker, unorthodox. You never know when the shots are coming. Volkanovski, I think, showed in that fight that even if he's going against a striker who's just straight striking and going to be going for your head, he mashed back with him and absolutely dominated Yair. And I think that same style, that same mentality, he needs to bring on Saturday. Because if what happened in that last fight with these two, Islam and Volk, Islam was able to get a couple of really good shots on Volkanovski, knocking him down a couple times, and that I feel like helped him to take him down and be able to gain the ground control that eventually got him the victory. I think if you're Volk, I say, you need to go in there and you need to, like you said, be aggressive. But I don't know if I'd focus so much on the legs. I'd focus more on just getting those nice, trying to get those big shots in. You pepper them up. You make sure you're getting your shots. You're landing more on the scorecards. You're causing more damage. And then and we know this, Volk isn't afraid to get taken down and work with him on the ground. He can survive. He's going to be able to do it. It's just a matter of staying out of his range, like you said. Don't let him don't let him get those takedowns. Stay on your feet as long as you can, and while you're on the feet with him, make sure that he's getting hit in his goddamn face, his goddamn body. Make sure the upper body is getting hit. I think if he has that, I don't think Islam's actually a better striker. He gets compared a lot to Khabib. I think he's a better striker than Khabib was, but I don't think he's on the same level as Volk. I think Volk is a much better striker, and if he takes that mentality of getting on him early and throughout the entire fight, we're going to see the greatest two-weight division champion this goddamn company's ever seen.
I think maybe Islam feels more comfortable striking, but I also think he hasn't fought some of the strikers Khabib fought. To his credit, Khabib did fight some deadly strikers. Edson Barbosa, your boy and Conor McGregor, Justin Gaethje. He fought guys who were very good. Dustin Poirier. Islam has not fought those guys yet. No. So we haven't really seen his stand-up compared to other top strikers within the division. Volk, one time. Oliveira, one time. But again, Oliveira more so uses his strikes to set up his takedowns to go to the ground.
Yeah.
I like what you said about Volkanovski peppering him up, going to body head. But then, see, this is what I'm saying. Islam moves around. Islam shoots in for his takedowns to get that. How do you stop some of that? When you're a shorter guy, you can't necessarily use the jab to keep him on the outside. I do think that if he went to the legs early and often, slow him down like he did with Max Holloway, now he becomes more of a stationary target. So when he's peppering him up, let's say those bombs ain't coming there. Okay, but if I'm peppering you up and you're more of a stationary target for me, that peppering becomes a little bit more easier and more often, to where if I just allow you to bounce around freely, move around, come in whenever you want to, now it becomes more difficult for me to adjust. And again, while I'm not afraid to go to the ground with you, I don't think he necessarily wants to spend that much time there, considering how the first fight went, where it's like, yeah, I'm throwing all these strikes back, but what, are you guys not counting them? And that was in his backyard.
Yep.
All I'm saying is, I'm not saying the judges are going to be biased, but there is something about, hey, when you're facing a champion in his backyard, you got to beat the champion. I think Volkanovski can get it, but again, while we are pro Volkanovski here, let's give all the credit and praise to Islam Makhachev. He's a champion for a reason, very, very confident. Some will say overly confident, but he has shown time and time again, every time he steps in there, there's a reason I'm supposed to be the next guy. There's a reason I'm 24-1. There's a reason no one has come close to beating me yet, except this little guy. Some might say I overlooked him last time. Am I overlooking him again? We shall see. But Islam Makhachev is a dangerous dude, a mauler. We're talking about Volk. You're saying Volk might become the greatest two-way champion. What does it say for Islam if he wins? What does that put him up? Again, it's a tough one. I can't help that Oliveira didn't come back for the rematch, but until I face Gaethje, until I face Chandler, until I face McGregor, till I face Poirier, till I face these other guys, I've dominated everyone else I face. What does it say about Islam in his reign if he was to come out victorious?
I don't think it means as much for him. I mean, he's going to get a title defense, yes, which those, you don't underrate them. They build careers. They build Hall of Fame careers. But this man, I mean, I kind of feel bad for Islam because he's now fighting this guy twice, and this is a dangerous cat. This is a dangerous boy he's going up against for the second time. And all he has to win is just defending his title, still being able to be a champion. I don't think it does anything for him when it comes to his legacy. When he's done, it's not going to mean much for his legacy at lightweight, because the guy he fought, and he has said his hardest fight he's ever had was Volkanovski, a 145-pounder. This guy is the featherweight champion. Like, I looking back on that, even if he wins, gets his second win against him, I don't think that's going to be something he's going to be proud. You know, it's not something he's going to be remembered for and be like, oh yeah, but he beat Volk. The guy who was 145 pounds, the guy who got off the couch and fought you on 11 days notice for the second fight, like, and gave you the hardest fight ever in your first fight, like that, I don't know. It's just not a good look for him, I don't think.
I disagree with you on that one, because history has shown, when we look back at someone like, we'll stick closer to Islam, Habib, do we look at how many title defenses he had and say, yeah, well, one of them was against a guy on the same day. Oh, but he lost around to Conor McGregor. No. At the end of the day, I won. Yeah. Yes, this is one of those where it's not the greatest scenario for me to be in. But, buddy, it's not my fault that my opponent got injured beforehand. You guys want me to stay on the card? You want to keep this card with a title shot, right? Okay, someone else has to step in. No matter who it is, they're going to have to come in on short notice. I apologize. Now, maybe the UFC should have did what they did with Kobe Covington in the last fight for welterweight and say, hey, he's going to be the backup plan here in case something happens. That way, we already know that this fighter has been in the camp, they've made the weight, etc. Correct?
Correct.
Maybe that goes a little bit better. But at the end of the day, for Islam, I just think that if he wins, and let's say he has a long reign, we're not necessarily going to go back and look at this as a short reign. You can look at almost every single champion. Anderson Silva has how many title defenses? And yet, do we go through them and say, well, one was against this guy who wasn't good, and this guy? No, he's still the all-time great. Some people try to say George St. Pierre fought in a weaker division. No! He fought against the best of the best during his time.
He did.
Same thing will be said for Islam. And why is 45? Griff, this is 55. It's not like it's 70 to 85, 85 to 205. It's not that big of a jump.
No, I agree. But you remember, we still do have weight bullies in this company, in this sport, people. All right. And I will say, the last thing I'll say about, the main event card, kind of like what you were saying, it's not Islam's fault who gets put in there with him after what happened with Oliveira. But I think that kind of dilutes to what we haven't talked about yet, which is someone did get screwed over. A couple people got screwed over after this whole arrangement, and one of them being in the main event was Justin Gaethje. Kind of got screwed over.
No, not necessarily.
Why didn't Gaethje get thrown on this card?
Why should he?
because he literally who did he beat that last Dustin Poirier, and that it was known during that fight. A lot of
who's to say that they didn't reach out to him and he turned it down?
It could have, and that's the case. That completely changes what I'm saying.
Who's to say that he doesn't have some type of injury lurking? That maybe not a very effective one, but hey, Dana, my wrist is kind of messed up right now. My hand is kind of sore. My knee's kind of messed up. My back is kind of sore. Who knows? Guess what? When the phone rang in Australia, Aussie, good day, mate. I'll be on the plane right now. Nice day in the outback, eh? He brought some Fosters. He got a kangaroo, and he was on his way there like Kangaroo Jack. Do not take away from the fact that, hey, it could have been this guy. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's Alexander Volkanovski. Speaking of which.
Yeah.
You know,
make that transition, brother.
it is October.
Yeah.
Halloween.
Yeah. My favorite year.
Ghouls, goblins, vampires. We got a werewolf in the Middle East.
Ooh.
And he's out there raining. He's been raining terror on the village. He's been pillaging. He's been looting. He's been taking all the goods, eating the 3 little pigs. He's been doing all that. But you know what he hasn't done? He hasn't gone to sleep. You know why? Because he's afraid of a nightmare. And where's that nightmare from? Nigeria. Ooh. The Nigerian nightmare. Kamaru Usman making his middleweight debut. He says, you know what? I'll fight the big fight. I'll take on the boogeyman. Y'all want me to kill a werewolf? I'll come in. I'll be the one that'll be huff, puff, and blow his house down. The porridge ain't too hot for Kamaru. He jumping in there, buddy. Kamaru Usman is go.
It's just right. It's just right.
Just right. That's good. Thank you.
Yep.
But Khamzat Chimaev, Kamaru Usman. This is going to be awesome. Kamaru Usman 20-3, even though he's lost his last 2 fights against Leon Edwards. Shout out to Leon Edwards.
Shout out Rocky.
But you got Khamzat Chimaev 12-0. Griff, you know before his Gilbert Burns fight, he had 4 UFC fights. He got hit twice. No, Griff. Twice. 4 fights.
Yep.
2 hits.
Didn't get touched much. Did he? 4
fights. He got hit twice. Griff, take it away.
This fight is weird.
Twice. Sorry.
Twice. All right. Twice. Now, this fight I have a little bit more of an issue with. All right. I want to go over, Kamaru Usman, Khamzat Chimaev. This fight, honestly, this fight has always been talked about. It's been talked about for the last, since 2020, ever since Khamzat really came onto the scene and people were really buying into the hype. And they were saying, oh, I can't wait to see him fight Usman for the belt. And then he's talking about middleweight and fighting Izzy, and he's going to be taking down 2 of the, Nigerian champions, African champions. I think this fight is interesting, but this fight would have been way more meaningful. And honestly, I think it would have been a lot better, the performances from both men, had it happened, let's say a year and a half ago, a little bit. Yeah, maybe instead of fighting Leon, he fights Khamzat Chimaev. That fight gets set up. But again, the UFC has to slowly bring these stars up the ladder. They have to slowly bring them up. And,
is that what happened? Okay.
I mean, the man has
Is that what happened?
That's it. Well, what do you think would happen? What do you think happened?
I don't know. The last time he fought, I think Randy Couture was the champion. Khamzat Chimaev. I think Chuck Liddell just entered the UFC. Tito Ortiz didn't even have blonde hair yet. George St. Pierre was literally called George St. Pierre. We didn't know who GSP was.
Yeah.
Nick Diaz's brother spoke regular English when that happened. This all happened back then, okay? Pride was still around the last time he fought. I think Frank Shamrock was in there. Last time Khamzat Chimaev fought. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was still airing with Will Smith. Will, we love you.
We love you.
The first season of Power Rangers just aired when Khamzat Chimaev last fought. So is that on the UFC to slowly build him up? Or has the wolf been sleeping a little bit, taking a little pooey?
Listen. Speaking proper English is wild. Jesus Christ. But I think, I can't, we don't know, again, we don't know what's happening behind the curtain. We don't know what goes on with the fighters in the UFC and how fights get scheduled. I mean, think back in 2020 when they were holding off Conor McGregor fighting, and then he kept throwing out messages into the media saying, they're not letting me fight. That could be the same thing with Khamzat Chimaev. They just don't want it. They want the perfect matchup. They want to make sure he's good to go. But then again, this inactivity, like you said, that's a problem on his side. With Kamaru Usman, it's not the head, what is Rocky's famous saying? What did he say after knocking Kamaru in Head Kick City?
Oh, headshot bang.
Headshot, or no, pound for pound, headshot dead. That's not what made me really worry about Usman at this moment. It's the third fight. It's their third fight because Usman did not look like the Nigerian Nightmare. He looked like Marty Fake Newsman in that third fight. He was not as aggressive. He wasn't as effective. Sorry. I don't agree. I don't agree with that statement, but I'm
not saying that, but don't do that, man.
It's the moment's there.
No, it was good. But that takes away from Leon Edwards doing what he did
yes.
to make it look like that. Sometimes, Griff, we've seen fights where, hey, I may have been off that night, and that dude was just better than me. Maybe that's what it is. Leon, at this point in his career, is just better than Kamaru Usman.
But don't you think like it could have been a total war the way, you know, he fought Kobe Covington, especially that first fight with Kobe Covington. It was an all-out war, but he still looked dominant, Usman. Yeah. And Kobe kind of held his, you got to say, Kobe kind of looked dominant in his own right too in that fight. That's what I was expecting when in that third fight with him and Leon Edwards. But instead, it would seem like it was a lot of Usman trying to do what he wanted to do, and Edwards just kind of was holding his own and just wasn't really in danger in that third fight.
Yeah, but at the same time, and we got to stick to this fight, but at the same time, that just goes to Leon Edwards. But if we stick to this particular fight here, look, I'm stepping in on late notice. I don't have to cut so much weight. I don't have to drain myself. And I'm taking on somebody who was not preparing for me. Maybe I go in and surprise him. Yeah, maybe it's a year and a half ago. But you know what? Khamzat didn't want to fight me back then for whatever reason. Whatever legit reason it was. He wasn't ready to fight me. The UFC didn't put him in there with me. I took on other guys, and I did what I had to do. Usman, like he said, kind of like John Jones. I may not be the best wrestler. I may not be the best striker. But when it's time to put everything together, I'm in that conversation for best of all time because I'm one of the best at putting it all together. Khamzat Chimaev has ran through everybody he has faced. Like we said, 4 fights, 2 strikes. He took on Kevin Holland on short notice because of that debacle because he missed weight by 8 pounds.
Disgusting.
What such an unprofessional chump that move that was.
Not
and
professional,
he got the nerve to come in there all overly confident. But Bios con Dios, man, that's up to you. Right on. But at the same time, you got Kamaru Usman at always being a professional, always willing to, and now he's taking on this particular fight on this notice. To both of these guys, and Volkanovski pointed out, would Islam take this fight on such short notice? Rafael Dos Anjos quickly put out a tweet where he showed he didn't want to take the fight against him on short notice. So it just goes to show the mindset of some of these guys. Like Volk told him, I got that dog in me. Usman got that dog in him. He does an x-ray, pit bull right here, Rottweiler, whatever, Nigerian poodle, whatever it is. He's got that dog in him, okay? I am looking forward to this fight because, again, it's like the main event. It's almost a win-win. If Kamaru goes out there and smokes him, woo! I just beat the boogeyman. Title shot, please.
He's still
if he
here.
goes out there and loses, unless it's headshot, bang, one hitter, quitter, unless it's something like that, dude, you took the fight on short notice. Yeah. Like, we're not going to knock you that much for it. Granted, now if you take a proper training camp, get ready for 185, put the weight on accordingly so you can cut down to 185 properly, then we'll see how you look. I don't think this ruins Kamaru Usman if he was to come out losing, but I do like Kamaru Usman going in there and pulling off the upset possibly because his style, I do believe, because of his wrestling, even though, you know, there's this whole mountain wrestling versus U.S. wrestling, we'll get into it possibly on the next show because Bo Nickel wanted this fight. He said the UFC didn't want him.
I love that, yeah.
Oh, well, wait. The UFC didn't want him to take on Khamzat over there. Why? Because the UFC is scared Khamzat ain't the real deal, and the Wolfman going to turn into a... He gonna start crying because the sun that came up. Oh, Nickel, America, that came out there and showed you what it is. The eagle, the American eagle, taking on the wolf. That'll be a great one. But I like Kamaru Usman in this particular fight.
I was about to say we need to do our predictions.
I like Usman. I like Volkanovski.
Okay, all right. That's
I'm taking underdogs.
No, underdogs. Nice, very nice. I think in the main event, I'm going Volkanovski, baby. Gotcha. I don't care if I'm wrong. I'll put the reputation on the line because Volkanovski, the great, is going to go in there and he's going to do what he needs to do. And it's going to be goddamn gorgeous. He's going to occupy 2 divisions, keep him busy. All right. And in the co-main event, which, oh God, you know, no matter whoever wins this fight, one man should be pissed again. It is one Dricus du Plessis that we can get in that in the recap show. But in this one, I might go with Usman too. I think I might go Usman because, you know, especially after what happened with Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns and what Gilbert Burns happened with Usman. These are all different fights. They might be different fighters today.
MMA math don't work.
I think Usman is going to be, like I said, what Paulo Costa was going to be his biggest test. It's going to be Kamaru Usman. He's really going to make he's going to make the wolf test it out.
So right here on the main event, Griff and Kalani have the underdogs in the co-main and main event. We'll see how it all turns out in Abu Dhabi. That has been another edition of the main event right here on Franchise Sports Media. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for all your love of combat sports and all sports in particular. Thank you guys for tuning in. Griff, my man, another great show.
Yes,
this
sir.
is
Griff and Kemp.
I'm Kalani Little. Till next time, fight fans.
Peace.